Maple Road always looked its best in early October. The maple leaves had just begun to turn, golden, crimson, rust, like the trees were gently letting go. I stood by the window with my morning tea, watching them drift down over the old picket fence George painted back in '85. He never did get the right shade of white, but I loved it all the same. I'd lived in this house for over 40 years, raised a family here, buried a husband, taught 3 generations of neighborhood kids how to read in that little sunroom with the squeaky floorboards. Maple Road wasn't just where I lived, it was who I was. Nathan had called the night before, my oldest. He said, "Mom, we should talk about your future. I just want what's best for you." He'd always been the practical one. Steady voice, pressed shirts, lawyer brain. I told him to come by for lunch. That morning, I set the table like I used to on Sundays. Cloth napkins, my good teacups, even the little lemon bars he liked as a boy. I made soup, the kind that simmers slow and fills the house with something warm. I wore my nicest cardigan, the one George used to say made my eyes shine. I even brushed a bit of color on my cheeks. Isn't that funny? 70 years old and still wanting to look nice for your children. When I saw Nathan's car pull up, I felt something flutter. Not fear, not yet. Just hope. Hope that maybe, finally, he'd stay long enough to eat, that he'd ask how I was sleeping, that we could just be a family again for a little while. I didn't know, as I laid out those lemon bars, that this would be the last time I set that table. The last time this house would feel like mine. If I had, maybe I would have sat a little longer in that sunroom, let the steam from my tea fog up the glass, held on tighter to the quiet before everything changed. But in that moment, I was just a mother, waiting, hoping and still believing that the people you love would always love you back. It started with soup and ended with silence. Nathan came in first, still wearing his office shoes. Click, click on my hardwood floor. Maggie followed, smile stiff as starch, clutching a leather folder like it was a weapon. She kissed my cheek, said I looked lovely. The kind of lovely people say at funerals. We sat. I served the soup. Nathan barely touched his. Maggie pretended to eat. I noticed her eyes scanning the room, the china hutch, the old piano, my grandmother's quilt draped across the couch. She didn't see memories. She saw market value. Then came the words. "Mom," Nathan started, smoothing out his tie like he was in a courtroom. "We've been thinking. It might be time to consider a more supportive environment for you." I blinked. "A what now?" Maggie jumped in. "A retirement residence, just for a little while. There's a lovely place outside Burlington, trees, activities, on-site medical staff. It's basically a resort." I felt my spoon pause midair. "I'm not sick," I said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Nathan sighed. "You've had some incidents, Mom. You fell. You forgot the stove. You left the front door open last week." I wanted to argue, but part of me hesitated. I had been forgetful, not dangerous, just tired. Grief plays tricks on the mind. I trusted them. They were my family. Then Maggie slid a document across the table. "We already have the papers. Remember the forms you signed? For medical planning, you gave Nathan power of attorney." My stomach dropped. The paper felt like a sheet of ice in my hands. Cold, irrefutable, signed. Within an hour, they had called a car, packed a small suitcase. Maggie chose my shoes, the flat ones with the worn heel. Nathan took down the photo of George and me. I watched as they put it in a box like it meant nothing. The house, my house, faded behind me as the car pulled away. And still, I said nothing, because betrayal doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it arrives in nice clothes, with soft voices and folded napkins. Sometimes it comes from the very hands you once held while crossing the street. The quiet was the worst part, not the food, not the walls, just the quiet. The room they gave me was small, too clean, smelled like lemon disinfectant and something, tired. The window looked out over a parking lot, no trees, no garden, just pavement and an old soda machine that made a horrible wheeze every time it coughed out a can. My name was taped to the door, misspelled. The first night I lay on top of the covers, coat still on, suitcase still zipped. I couldn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering if the house still smelled like my vanilla candles, if my soup pot was still on the stove. Nathan didn't call. Maggie didn't text. No visits, not even a check-in. One of the nurses said cheerfully, "Don't worry, honey. They're just giving you time to adjust." Adjust to what? Being erased? A few days in, a young aide, probably 19, maybe 20, told me that Nathan was having the floors redone in my house. Said he was getting it ready for buyers, just casually, like she was reading the weather. I nodded, politely, quietly. That night, I finally broke. I pressed my face into the pillow and let it happen. Big aching sobs, the kind that don't make noise but tear through your chest. I didn't want anyone to hear me. I didn't want pity. I cried not just for the house, not even for the betrayal. I cried because I'd let it happen. I'd signed the paper. I'd raised that boy. I'd believed that love meant trusting him, even when something in my gut had whispered otherwise. The next morning, I sat by the window in my robe, watching the soda machine cough again. The wind picked up, tossing a fast food bag across the asphalt. That was the moment I stopped waiting, stopped hoping they'd come back. Something inside me didn't break that day. It shifted, like a door slowly unlocking after years of rust. I didn't know it yet, but that was the beginning of something else, something they couldn't take from me. The past has a funny way of showing up exactly when you need it. It started with a cardboard box. One of the nurses wheeled it in, said it had come from my house. Odds and ends Nathan didn't have space for. I thanked her, waited until she left, then sat cross-legged on the floor and opened it. Old scarves, a chipped mug, a church bulletin from 1997. At the very bottom, folded beneath a stack of holiday cards, was a blue folder. I knew it the second I touched it. The texture, the slight bend in the corner. George and I used to keep all our important documents in it. House stuff, insurance, bank letters. My hands shook. Inside was the original deed to the Maple Road house. My name, just mine, dated 1974, stamped, signed, no amendment, no transfer, no notary seals from Nathan, no signature but mine. I sat back on the carpet like someone had hit me in the chest. The room spun for a moment, not from fear, from clarity. All this time, I thought they'd taken everything. But they hadn't. Not yet. Later that day, I found Ruth, the retired notary who sat 2 tables down at meals. She'd once notarized a divorce for a state senator, she liked to say. I showed her the deed. She looked over the pages, adjusted her glasses, and whistled. "Honey," she said, tapping the page, "this house is still yours, legally, unless they forge something. And even then, they'd have to get past a judge with a real bad day." I stared at the paper. For the first time in weeks, I felt something steady in my chest. Not joy, not relief, fire. That night, I tucked the folder under my pillow. I didn't sleep. I lay there watching the red light blink on the smoke detector. They thought I was done, tucked away, filed and forgotten, but that folder in my hand said otherwise. They may have written me off. But I still had one more chapter to write. They thought I was fading, but I was just getting quiet. I didn't tell anyone. Not the nurses, not the social worker, not even Ruth. Not at first. I just started. Watching. Listening. I paid attention to when the front desk got distracted, which aides took their breaks at which times, who had a soft spot for peppermint bark, who knew how to use the printer in the activity room without it jamming. Quietly, I asked Ruth for a favor. Just to look something up for me. She didn't push. But 2 days later, she handed me a Post-it note with the number of her cousin, a retired real estate agent. I called him from the staff phone in the garden, told him I had a house, told him I was ready to sell. He asked for the address. When I said Maple Road, he whistled. "That area? I've got buyers lined up before I even make the listing." I didn't smile. But inside, a part of me that had been dead for months, maybe years, sat up straight. It moved fast. He handled the listing discreetly. Ruth helped me scan the documents. We used the library computer in the rec room, and when the printer broke, we mailed the rest. The offer came in within 36 hours. Full asking price, cash. I opened a new bank account in my maiden name. Quiet, clean, legally mine. Nathan called the next morning, his voice syrupy. "Hi, Mom, just checking in. You doing okay?" I told him I was fine, that the nurses were sweet, that the pudding was better than I remembered. He had no idea. That Friday night, Ruth bribed an aide with a box of chocolates to skip my room on rounds. I packed a single suitcase, slipped out during bingo. No one stopped me. No one ever expects the quiet woman to disappear. By dawn, I was on a train heading east. The sky pink and wide behind me. And the deed, the money, the silence, all mine. Sometimes you don't need to fight fire with fire. Sometimes you just walk away and build your own. I got off the train in a small New Hampshire town I'd only seen once, years ago, on a class trip. It smelled like wood smoke and something else. New beginnings, maybe. I had one suitcase, a bank account, and a folder of documents tucked under my coat. I rented a room above a bakery for the first few weeks. The woman who owned it, Darlene, had silver hair and didn't ask many questions. She gave me extra pastries when she had a rough day, and I paid her in full and always on time. It didn't take long to find it. An old elementary school, boarded up, overgrown with weeds, standing like a memory no one wanted anymore. The windows were cracked, the bell tower silent. I walked the halls alone one morning and whispered, "You're not done yet." Neither was I. With the money from Maple Road, I bought the building outright. No loans, no strings, just me, a notary, and the keys. I called it Maple House. It wasn't fancy at first, but we painted, cleaned, planted a garden out front. Word spread. Quiet at first, then louder. Older women showed up with bags, bruises you couldn't always see. One had been evicted by her own daughter. Another had nowhere else to go after her son changed the locks. We welcomed them, fed them, let them rest. Then we helped them rise. We taught them how to open bank accounts, how to read legal documents. We brought in volunteer lawyers and grief counselors. We shared stories over soup and folded laundry and old gospel records. We stitched each other back together. I never put my name on the door, but I did hang one framed sentence in the lobby, right next to the front window. "You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not done." Nathan tried to sue me, said I stole the house. The judge dismissed it in under 10 minutes. I didn't even go to court. The attorney handling the case was one of my former students. I heard they sold what was left of the Maple Road place for less than they expected. Stripped the porch, painted over the blue shutters George and I once argued about for weeks. Painted them beige. I visited once, didn't go in, just stood across the street. A young couple sat on the porch with a baby. I smiled. That house? It wasn't mine anymore. But this life, this quiet, powerful, chosen life, that was mine. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. If this story found you, I want to say this. You're not alone. Whether you're a daughter, a mother, or someone still figuring out how to heal, there's a place for your voice here. Tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone erased by the people they loved? And if you are her, or used to be her, I see you. Let's talk.